Hey, we're here with my mother today, Barbara Greer. Barbara's been living in Llano, Texas for the last several years, but she is straight up a Golden Triangle Lapland Cajun. And Barbara, we're going to ask you several questions and have you tell us several stories today. But let's start out with you telling us the story you like to tell about Harry Choates' funeral.
It all started, my neighbor, she was the sister to Harry Choates' mother, and
Who's your neighbor?
Miss Delcom from Fort Acres. Uh, her daughter was my lifelong friend. We were neighbors all our lives. And she come to my mother and I, and she says, my nephew was killed in jail. He wrote a hot check. They killed him. Could we please go pick up my sister and we go to the funeral? Well, I was real sentimental. I was terribly, terribly sad about things. I had a lot of emotion. We got to this house in Port Arthur, a poor, poor little shotgun house. I mean, it was just so poor. And we got her, and we went in her house. We had to dress her in these old clothes. She didn't have a new dress or anything. We had to dress her.
Now, who is this? This is
And this
Harry's
is
mother?
Harry Choates' mom. She was crying hysterically, and she kept saying, they killed my boy. They killed my boy. So we got her in Miss Delcom's car, and we went to the funeral home.
Now, you were with your lifelong childhood
Joanne,
friend?
Joanne, and myself, my mother, and we put her in the front seat, and my mother and I and Joanne got in the back, and she was hysterical. Well, it was just about to kill us all.
Well, what was your impression of what had happened to Harry?
He got killed. They beat him up in the jail over a hot chick. It was just beat somebody getting killed in jail. Just a plain, but he was her only son.
Okay.
So anyway, and they tell me later that he sold that song for $50. And it just went boom.
What song?
Jolie Blonde. And I sing it. I made my grandmother teach me the words, and I love to sing that song. And every time I do, every fiddle around me, I have Cajun music and Cajun abilities to sing, and they just love to get behind me and tear that song up on the fiddle. But anyway, so we get to the funeral home. Oh my God, Joanne and I's first funeral, 11 years old. And she gets
So
in
your
it, and
first funeral you ever went to was Harry Choates?
yes, 11 years old. And my dad told me not to go, and I begged Mama to take Joanne and I. Begged our mother. Well, when we got there, she took his body in the casket and picked it up. She picked the body out of the casket. Well, we found out they did not have a back to the shirt, just the front part. They didn't have a back.
So when she picked the body up, there
We
was
saw
no
the back.
back
Oh,
part to the shirt.
I'm not lying. I got numb. Mom and I were just numb. Okay. So we started crying hysterically. Couldn't hardly help it. Well, she never left the casket. She just screamed and screamed. So when we got out, well, we were the only ones with her. No relatives or anything was there. And when we got there to the graveyard, I understood French because I had told my grandmother, I'd asked her to please teach me French. And she taught me so much that I could sing and, and relate with her.
So you could
She lived
sing and speak Cajun
to
French.
her, and to her, because she lived with us for 2 years. I was 14 and 15 when she came to live with us, and I wanted to talk to her. So she started teaching me. Well, I'd go teach Joanne everything she would teach me. But anyway, at the graveyard, she started screaming, don't put him in the dirt. Please don't put my boy in that dirt. Well, we were just crying, the whole bunch of us. We were just in shock. And Joanne and I, we were almost like in a coma. And
You'd never seen anything like that.
no. And she'd say, please, but in French, now she'd say, met pas mon petit garçon dans la terre. I know that means please don't put him in that dirt. Well, it was the worst thing I have ever witnessed. And then they buried him. Well, when they buried him, she had a sister that was wealthy. And she lived in the middle of town, very nice person. And she had parrots all over the house, and we went in there, and she took her such good care of her sister, and she told her sister, you're now going to live with me. Your boy's not with you anymore. And I think he was a drunk. In my mind, he was probably a drunk. So she didn't take care of her sisters then, let them live their own lives, poor. But now she said, you're going to live in my beautiful home. She was a widow. So after that, we went home, and I asked Dad, I said, Daddy, please get me an aspirin. We didn't have Tylenol. I said, get me an aspirin. I'm in the worst state of shock. And on the radio, Webb Pierce was singing, uh, I'd walk a mile, cry or smile for my mama and daddy. You you know, I love them so. I said, Daddy, turn that off. Turn it off now. Because Mom and I are in shock. He got us both an aspirin. And I literally had to go to bed the whole evening. I was in shock. And it took me a long time before I ever could go to a funeral. And I never could hardly go because I would smother after that.
Because of that first funeral
right,
experience.
right.
Yeah.
It was so
So
that, and so that is, and then after that, I never saw the woman and her sister again. But it was three sisters. It was Joanne, Miss Delcom, and this other. I didn't know her name, and Harry Choates' mother. I didn't know her name, and it was terrible.
So Joanne Delcom, Jean Delcomo's mother,
Mm-hmm.
was related to Harry Choates.
Yeah, they were sisters. Harry Choates' mother, and so Joanne's first cousin to Harry Choates.
Okay. Thanks, Barbara.